All right.
Go ahead.
Here's a hot take. Boba Fett was never good.
Hello, and welcome to the bottom of the internet. This is another Dead Pixel, the podcast that always remembers to leave the toilet seat down. I am your host. My name is Nick. Here with me today is the man who became the first human NFT. It's Joe. Joe, how you doing today?
Yeah, well, I'm doing all right, but unfortunately, me being the NFT, that wasn't my idea. That was actually done against my will. My lawyers are looking into it, trying to get me free from that.
Because I
I
mean,
mean,
everybody hates you now because you're an NFT.
well, they don't hate me personally. They just hate what I represent. And once again, it was supposed to just be a short clip for YouTube Shorts, and somehow they turned it into a NFT. I mean, it's like, who knows? There's just a one button away from doing something stupid to doing something evil. I mean,
I see. I see what you're saying. So, but you're also saying that that you want people to separate the art from the artist. You being the art, and I don't know who made you, but they would be the artist that is trying to basically steal money from people. Is that what I'm hearing?
yeah, and I guess I'm easily duplicated, and you can easily just slap a number on me and just print. So I'm like a dime a dozen. Uh,
I'm
I
gonna have a
mean,
JPEG of you
yeah.
as my profile picture.
Well, it's just just don't give any Ethereum to it, and you'll be fine.
Seriously though, if you were an NFT, what company or person would make you? What so as you are, what company or person fits with like I would make a Joe NFT? I mean, I guess besides another dead pixel.
Yeah, no, that'd be about it, right? Probably some recovery group or something like some PSA warning being like don't go to Vegas and don't gamble or else you're gonna wind up like this guy, a couple $100 down. Uh,
Oh yeah, so you just recently like within the past few hours got back from a trip to Vegas. Is that right?
yeah, so I touched down at like 1 this morning, and so for those who don't know, we're this is episode 11.
Oh yeah, this is episode 11.
So we're recording this on Saturday morning, opposed to the Friday night, or that we usually like to do, mainly because my flight came in, and yeah, so it's bright and early. Got about good 4 hour shut eye, and yeah, we ended up had a good time in Vegas. A buddy of mine, we planned this trip years ago. We literally COVID the day that or the week that we were supposed to go out, they had just closed the entire strip. The entire strip, like there's no buffets, no gambling. The entire strip was done. You might have seen a bunch of photos from people in their hotel rooms being like, "Look at this ghost town." We were supposed to be there for that, and we were able to avoid it. And different plane companies and hotels and stuff, they're like, "We'll hold on to your money for you, and then you can reschedule." And eventually, after 2 years or so, they're like, yeah, you're gonna have to use that money, or else it's ours now, just forever. And so, like, I guess we're going on this trip. So yeah,
Oh yeah,
uh,
okay. Because I was kind of wondering, like, man, that's a really nice trip. Now,
kind of out of the blue too, right?
kind of out
I
of the
mean,
blue, and then I think you got another trip planned here next month. So I was kind of like, that's a lot of trips, but okay. And now it makes sense. Yeah, because my mom was in a similar situation. She was planning to go to Hawaii, and then all that happened, and so she she still lost some money, I think, on it, but managed to get the plane tickets where he worked out. But yeah, so Vegas, though, I mean, you went with a buddy, and I guess you guys had quite a bit of fun. Is that right?
Yeah, so my wife was super awesome, so shout outs to her and my mother-in-law for sure. My mother-in-law was like, yeah, so we asked her, she's like, yeah, I'll come from out of state to help watch the kids while you go have fun. So yeah, my not even 3 month old, she's like, and my son, they're both being like, I'm sorry, kids. You're gonna forget about me anyways the moment the door shuts, so don't worry. Uh, yeah, we touched down. We ended up doing a bunch of stuff. Uh we did the we went up to the, I think it's called the Qua. It's Caesar's Palace spa, and that thing is like wicked expensive. My buddy treated me to that, and an expensive uh massage, and then they include the Roman bath for it's like it's gender specific, so a lot of the photos, like the promo photos, were showing like, yeah, husband and wife or something, or like a couple together. I'm like, it was like, why do you do that when all the other stuff on the paperwork like says it's only per gender? So but yeah, it's just, they're like, for every massage you get like a 3 hour package or something like that. So they have multiple saunas, multiple types of, like, you got a hot bath, cold bath, or and then like a body temperature one. uh yeah, it's just, we just lounged and just slothed it out for a good 3 hours, and it was a good time. We went there, we did saw a couple shows, did the MJ live, uh not to be confused with the Michael Jackson 1 show, because that one is Cirque du Soleil. MJ live is a tribute, so that's about a little over an hour long, and that one was really cool. uh
It's funny you should mention that, but like I did. So I had the last company I worked with. The headquarters were in Vegas, and we had a retreat there. And one of the things that they had us do was go to Cirque du Soleil, and we did the Michael Jackson Cirque thing.
okay.
And it was really cool. It was really cool. All the circus people and acrobats were really awesome. Um, but the weird thing about it was that it was pretty apologetic about, well, not really apologetic. It was pretty defensive about Michael Jackson. Um, it was just like vaguely like, all these people taking pictures of me and printing horrible things about me. It's terrible. And
So for those who don't know, Cirque du Soleil generally has a story behind
oh yeah,
their bit, and it's like a rock opera, like, adjacent. They take the music and then they kind of form their own tale to tell. I don't know anything about the Michael Jackson one, but I did see last time I was in Vegas, the Beatles Love one.
mm,
And so they take all the Beatles music and they kind of make their own story to it, and starting off from like World War II, essentially,
yeah,
and kind of moving through time.
yeah.
So
So it was just sort of like, okay, I guess that's all right, but the acrobats and stuff are really cool. But anyway, that's my Cirque du Soleil story. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's so we the MJ Live, the dude was really good. He sang wonderfully, and the choreograph moves and stuff were just spot on. Uh, we were up and close. Uh, Yeah, it's funny because we were there waiting in line, and this one couple that was behind us, it was her birthday, and because we were there early and we had like the expensive seats, her and her husband chose to sit right at the table next to the stage, just right up against it. We wanted to be a little more comfortable, so we were a little further back in a booth, and we're like, yeah, this is good for us. But yeah, uh, if you're up if you want to be eye to eye, you go to one of those tables and he'll look dead in the eyes and just sing to you, and then they allow all the video you want for the most part.
Yeah,
Just don't record the whole thing from start to finish, and no flashes. But they were really cool with camera work, so some of the people up in front were just recording, and he would be singing, and then he'd look dead in the camera and start singing to the camera too, for like, on your cell phone for a hot sec. And it's pretty cool.
that's pretty
That dude
cool.
really worked the crowd well. uh, we saw that. We also did the Tournament of Kings at Excalibur, which is their version of medieval times.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty good. I was surprised how good it was, because we have a medieval times by us outside of Chicago, and that one's good. But it was funny because this arena is much smaller in scope compared to that one medieval times. So Tournament of Kings, like you have the three different seats, and like from the cheap seats, quote unquote, to the expensive ones, it was like a difference of like $7. And we're like, for $7, let's pick the front row. Let's pay for that. And we had some Canadians to my right, and we were all seated. Different countries were listed as your seating areas, and so front and center on one side, on the bottom side was like Dragon, and the rest were all countries. Dragon, I guess, is supposed to be just England, like a generic England.
Okay.
Slash also potentially the bad guy. But then opposite of Dragon, right, front and center. So like the 50-yard line, if you were, because it's an oval shape, was Russia. And so we were front and center in Russia, and never cheered so hard for the Russians ever. That was great. Our dude was unsportsmanlike. During the horse races, he hit the dude in the back of the head, and us and the Canadians next to us, we were just like hooting and hollering, screaming. It was a good time.
I love Canadians. I've met a lot. There was one that I didn't like back in Japan, but every other one I've ever met has always been really great.
It was funny. They were always my best drinking buddies in Korea for sure. But usually, I mean, like 90% of the ones I met were outside the GTA, Greater Toronto area.
Okay.
So
Okay. Is that on purpose? GTA.
They refer to like if you say GTA, they'll understand because there's like Newmarket and stuff like that. It's just funny because you'll just generally say like how if you're close enough to a major city, you'll just claim to be part of that major city, and they're like, oh yeah, where from? Well, actually, we're kind of in the sticks, we're actually outside the suburbs, but it's easiest to say, but that whole area outside of Toronto is all still pretty packed.
It's like being from New York State and not from like from near New York City. You're just like, yeah, I'm not, but no one understands that anywhere else. So just say,
for sure. Or claiming to be from New York when you're actually just across the bridge in Jersey.
Poor Jersey, man. I feel like I don't hate Jersey as much now because of Vinny Caravella always talking about like living in Jersey and stuff, and a few other people, because it's like, man, they're
but Jeff Becklar makes me be like, yeah, no, Jersey gets the rep for it deserves.
Is he born and raised Jersey boy?
Yeah, he lives in Hoboken, and he talks about how Hoboken gets a bad rap, and it's just funny because one of the things was like Hoboken is in Max Payne 3, and they make it look like the most like scum part of the country, because it's only there for a hot minute, and then as Max Payne does the murder, and then he's like, I gotta leave country, so he goes to Brazil to do the Man on Fire bit,
Okay.
So
I never played the Max Paynes, but okay.
The third one was done by Rockstar, so they just like, let's just take Man on Fire and then make it into a game.
Okay.
So that's a really good Denzel movie for sure, though.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, not to jump off onto that.
It's the remake. There was an original Man on Fire that I never saw.
Yeah, like I liked it. I saw it kind of later and on TV, so I wasn't like enthralled with it. Maybe if I had seen it whenever it came out in theaters, I would have enjoyed it more. But anyway, yeah. So you were talking about Excalibur.
Screaming with the Screaming with the Canadians. That whole show is totally worth it. They'd give you, it's a meal and a show together, and we went from that. We did I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but we went from there to an escape room right afterwards, and it was a Saw themed escape room. So it was officially licensed.
Yeah.
And that was a good time. And we ended up going to a video game bar later that same night. So it was a long evening.
You were texting me though and saying that the Saw escape room was really awesome. So I've done like 2 or 3 escape rooms, I guess at least 2, and they were good and fun, but I was wondering what you thought about this one.
All right. Well, we have for example, we have a couple of them where I live, and there's different tiers of difficulty, and depends on what size groups. Generally speaking, if you have they'll dumb it down for you. If it's also it depends on the size. So the scale for like one of the ones here, it's like $20 for an hour, or no, $20 for like a half hour escape room, but it's only for two people. A cent minimum, and then they'll have like maybe $30 or something like that for a four person or more. And yeah, this one was, I think it's starting out at $50 a person, and then you can get like a VIP package one, which is like $100, and that'll add a few more actors.
Oh
And you're
wow.
like, wait a minute, when you're reading that, you're like, oh, there's actors. And they often give you like special photo ops and stuff like that. But yeah, for the $50 package, you let's see. In order to get there, it's a little north of the main Vegas Strip. So it's somewhere between closer to the the Stratosphere, opposed to so north of Caesar's Palace and stuff like that. And it's also not. It's also like a parallel to the left side of the Strip. So if you ever go off the Strip, and especially if you go towards the left, towards the highway, I can't remember the number, but if it goes north and south, right next to the highway is all where the strip clubs are, the gentlemen's clubs, and the firing range and stuff like that. So and then there's nothing else there. It's just all empty, dead buildings. So it looks very vacant.
Mm.
So there's no way you're on that side of the town being like, I was just lost. I wasn't at the gentlemen's club.
You know where you are, buddy.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
nothing
So
else
we're
here.
driving past all that, and all of a sudden it's just like our Uber pulls us over, like oh, here's your spot, and we're like, huh? It's like the outside is like a butcher's company, and we're like, oh, that's kind of neat. So it's set up to look like I forgot the name of it now, but it's just a butcher, like the theme. So yeah, you go there and you're waiting, and they have two different shows there. They have a Blair Witch one, and they have the Saw licensed one, and we went for the Saw. Uh, Turns out it's actually like multiple rooms. It's like 7 rooms roughly, um, with something like a 7 to 10 minute timer in each room, and so they are based off some of the different puzzles and stuff, or off the movies. For example, you have the one furnace room, so it's like you have codes you have to get through to different doors and to escape or to get further in.
Mhm.
And my buddy had to crawl through essentially the furnace. We had to shut the door behind him. We flipped the switches, did the strobing lights inside, and made a lot of loud noises. uh, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was us and I think it was two Germans. No, three Germans. Because I couldn't quite make out what they were saying. They were speaking mostly English, but every now and then they'll slip into something else. And we happened to be there on the 9th, and so when one of them was asking about the date, I said the 9th, and they all kind of got it. They all kind of chuckled for a second because I said 9th, and then and I'm
Nine.
like, yeah, exactly. So I'm like, probably German, but I'm like, I didn't bother asking, but we only one of those guys was actually really into it. The other two were just kind of there for their sake. Like they were trying to solve it a little bit, but they weren't really there. You can tell they were there to help because the one friend's like, come on guys, let's do this. So yeah, it was essentially us three really working hard for these puzzles. And they one of the actors, it was funny because I was in the middle of crawling underneath some cages and trying to get to a piece of a code. And when I come back up, there's just this other dude just with us now. And I'm like, where the hell did he come from? And so he was one of the actors. I forget his because I didn't catch his introduction. I didn't. He has a character name, so but shout outs to his real name is Lyric. He did a really good job of helping guide us, and he made it very enjoyable. And so the point of him being there was he would also help drop clues that we needed, but as like in character, like I heard them say something like this, or just in general, some of the things that sometimes over the loudspeaker when you're getting the clues for from Jigsaw himself. You're like they'll it's really hard to hear the order of things. You're like, okay, what's going on? So he'll help repeat that just to make it a little more smooth transition for you. So it was for us, as it were, a little dumbed down. Um, but I think the challenge was pretty good, and we had an overall really good time. Though I got into the I'm solving this puzzle mode, and so me and my friend were just like hitting one thing after another. We're like, okay, got it. It's like, okay, there's a couple sinks. This one has a hole in it. My hand's going straight down that garbage disposal, because it's you like it's like it's fake, but what if it's not?
Yeah, I mean, it's good because like there's a kitchen sink there, so your lizard brain has been taught to be like, don't put your hand on the garbage disposal, dude. That's horrible, but that's cool. That's a pretty good idea.
And for anyone, if for everyone who listens outside the U.S., American sinks have a lot of times they'll have rotary blades to grind up big chunks of food, because we don't throw food away in a separate garbage bag or anything like that, or compost. We just throw like eggshells sometimes, or bits of chunky meat, and they'll throw it down the garbage disposal. And you shouldn't do eggshells. You really shouldn't. But
you shouldn't do meat. You're not supposed to do meat either.
Yeah, but essentially it's anything soft and slightly that you just couldn't get, you want to grind up, you end up doing that. And it's amazing what people try to shove down a garbage disposal. But that's why whenever you see a horror movie and like, or the wedding ring drops down or something, you're like, you slowly reach for it. And yeah, it's but I reach my hand down. I'm like, and I pull up like there's a puzzle piece attached to a chain, and like, okay, it's number 4 or something, and then that's part of a sequence to get through a keypad. And they did. Like I said, we went through a number of rooms. We technically only failed one, which I had the right answer. I just couldn't it was someone's it was a converting letters to a touchpad, but the touchpad didn't have the alphabet written on there. And there was another clue in another room, but that room was completely full. That's where everyone. That was the last door we opened up, and so they were like, all the guys were shoved in there, and I'm like, okay, I couldn't see anything. Apparently, they had a rotary phone in there to help give you the alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, so you needed one person essentially to yell out the code to someone else, and so I'm sitting there trying to thinking about like, okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, and so I'm like, okay, this, then that. Then shoot, and then I'm like, I'm timing out. I'm like, oh crap, okay, I'm not fast enough to. And then also I screwed up because I didn't start the alphabet on 2. I started it on 1. But if you look at the phone, 1 doesn't count. So ABC starts on number 2. So that was the one we technically failed, but they just opened the door anyways, because obviously they want you to see all the attractions.
Yeah.
And yeah, the other one we failed was kind of the warm up starter room, which kind of it's like. They admitted, they're like, okay, so it's just a simple puzzle, and essentially it's meant to get your brain started,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll give you less assistance if the team, if it looks like you're going through it kind of quick, because there's a couple stages. Like if you're going through it quick, they won't help you. But also if the team in front of you, whoever's in line, if they are taking their time, then they won't help you. But if they are going through pretty quickly, then they'll be like, okay, eventually if you stall long enough, they'll be like, here's the answer, because it's just a warm up room. But they kind of call it a
the first one I ever went into, I think it was a like they would give you clues, like you had like 3 lifeline clues. Was that on this one too?
No, they just essentially they had timers in each room, and what they do is they, during the actual rest, other than that warm up one, they, for the most part, not all the rooms, but the actor was in there for quite a few of the rooms, and he would just kind of say, "Hey, you're gonna maybe we got to look for this or something like that," and like and so. We have to find the hands or something like that. They said something about the hands. And so we have to look, we're looking through a bunch of cages for mannequin hands. And so then it'd be like, oh, okay, this one has like one finger and an arrow pointing in this direction, and this one has three fingers and arrow pointing this direction. So we found out, okay, there's X amount of hands, X amount of like the arrows pointing, and then there was a arrow keypad lock. So okay, so we just put it in order. So what was the order again? And so we all split up, and so we would yell out, 1, 2, and like, so whoever had that number, and then one of us would be entering it in. But yeah, buddy, like I said, because it was my buddy and I really into it, and then the one other guy, so I had to stop myself from bogarting because
What?
I was really, I was
Humphrey,
just,
like
well, I don't
Humphrey
want to be.
Bogart? Like I forgot what that means. What's bogarting?
It's like when you take over. It's like, this is you start like hogging it for yourself. Um,
Yeah.
because I was like, I understand, my brain's clicking and I'm moving way faster, and so I was like, okay, here I am. So it's like, because you're reading the waiver for all the things you have to sign off on, like, and one of the things is like, there's a possibility you can get dirty from this, from some of the stuff and blah blah blah, and crawling. And I'm like, wait, crawling's on this? So that way, like, we got to this one room, and that's when I was like, oh, there's a gap here. And I'm like, I bet I go underneath these cages. Okay, roger that. So like, I just jumped in, went down, started crawling, and that's, by the time I came up, all of a sudden this new guy was here. I'm like, who the hell is that dude? So that was my, that. But I was moving at a quick enough pace, uh, because I like a good puzzle. I really enjoy that stuff. And so eventually, what happened is like, we unlocked the part to this next thing. I'm like, then I turn around, I just stop for a moment. Any of you guys want to give it a shot? You know, especially some of those guys, like two of the guys were just like, they were half into it. So I'm like, hey, you want to do this thing? You want to try it? So like, we got time to spare.
Yeah, like
'Cause
whenever I've
we're not going for a record or anything like that. So
like yeah, like we were actually kind of close to the record on one of ours, but I don't know. We ended up coming up short. But yeah, I remember playing some games with you in the past, and you're very good at puzzles. Like you're very good. It's not even so much at figuring them out, because it's like I might be able to figure them out as fast, but you can like execute on a puzzle like really, really quickly. Like I mean, I could, if I really focused and got down, I could probably do that, but you kind of come to it naturally, I think. So you're the kind of person that I would want in an escape room. The ones that I've been in, they do a pretty good job of giving different puzzles. Like there was one I went to in Vegas, and that one wasn't as good, but the one in Hawaii was like, they had like three different puzzles going at any one time. So as long as you didn't have too many people in the room, everybody had something to do most of the time. So like I like that, because then it's like, it's not just letting like one person, do it. But
yeah,
it's
the
still,
ones by me around here are like the cheaper. Like, there's a mall one that has different rooms for the size of people you have,
yeah.
and you can. It is a lower budget, but it's still fun. It's one of those places where they kind of, the managers of different facilities kind of go there, and you kind of buy the ideas. It's like buying a board game and then displaying that board game at your facility. So you kind of get these in the almost pre-made kits, right? So everyone kind of gets the same pieces, and it's but you're setting up your own room. And yeah, these ones, they're nice. Like, my wife and I, we ended up, they'll, if you get the time of the day, like the high score, for the quickest time, you can write your name on the board and stuff like that. And we got that for this one that we did, that was a 2-man team, but we got it at 15 minutes, and we should have had it at 10. But one of the puzzle pieces, that's because a lot of the times when you have a key or something like some sort of item, it's a magnet trick. You slap the thing on, and the magnet will unlock the thing you need to do, or trigger the light or something like that. And we did the thing, but for some reason, the part that was supposed to like click open didn't click open. It was jammed. So we actually did it, and then we can like, oh, what? That should have been it. That should have totally been it. Okay, so let's try it. And we reworked and wasted more time, and then that they have camera looking at us, and they're like, oh yeah, no, the one guy came in, he goes, wait a minute, and then he fiddled with it, and he opened it, he goes, okay, here you guys go, and then he left again, and like, oh, and 3 2 1 bam, we're done. And it was just like, so we came out, I'm like, what the hell, man? It's like, it's not our fault, it's busted. It's like, we
Sorry,
got,
bro.
it's like, yeah, I know, right? It's
I
like,
just
do
work
we
here.
get a discount for the next one? They're like, no, I'm sorry, blah
Uh,
blah blah. Like, fuck that. But
no, we're not gonna
yeah,
try to make you happy. No, I don't
yeah, exactly.
like.
But it was just like, it's not our fault. Your shit was jank. But they've done stuff like we've done stuff like there was a different like Small Witches one, which was a 1 room thing, and we did a Jack the Ripper one, which was also like 2 man tiny room, which is because you're supposed to you're trapped in an alleyway. But no, this one, the Saw one, is just phenomenal. It was totally worth the price. You got especially if you know the films, I guess you'd be way more like, I remember seeing the first 3, maybe 4 films, and apparently there's 9. Um, oh
Okay.
well, there's like 8, and then like 8 Saw movies, and it's or no, 7 Saw movies. And the 7th one was like the final chapter or something like that. And then, because we had looked this up beforehand, like, but then there was 8 was then Jigsaw, and then 9 just came out in 2021. It's loosely adjacent, I guess, but Spiral with Chris Rock. Uh,
Okay.
so
Oh.
yeah, it's just
Okay.
it's Spiral. It didn't look like him on the cover, kind of, because it's the lit up kind of weird, but it's like his face lit up with neon light. Um, and I think it's supposed to be, at least it popped up when we try to look up the film franchise or series
Yeah.
that was on that. Their poster was on there, so uh, it might be something related to like him being Danny Glover's like kid or something like that from the first movie. Um,
So I've never seen any of them. I noped out on the torture porn aspect of it. I like horror, but I'm not into that torture porn stuff. I do feel like I need to go back and watch the first one, at least with the fast forward button on at some points, just because it is kind of a big part
I
of
didn't think it
horror
was.
movies
I
at
didn't
that
think it was
time.
that bad. As far as me, because at that time, movies like Hostel were really big, and I skipped out of those.
Well,
Um,
like I thought Hostel kind of came after and came out because of Saw. That's what it
I
was to me.
I don't think it has any real relation to Saw in
Well,
that respect.
I don't mean like a sequel, but I mean like,
No, no,
hey, they're
no.
making these movies now, so we're gonna make Hostel.
Yeah. So that I'm not sure like exactly how the relation on that is. I know that Saw was interesting and grotesque in a way, but it wasn't like it. It wasn't as bad. There's like one scene that was kind of grody in the first one, which was um
Spoilers.
you got the yeah, slight spoilers for a forever old movie. Uh the person's wearing a head cage. It's a reverse bear trap. And there's a key in the back. In order to get the key, she has to go through the other person ate the key. And I think originally it's like the idea is they've been anesthetized, and so but their guts are like their stomach's going open, so she has to go fishing through the intestine to grab the key to unlock it. Um, and that's the part that was the most gory part. The rest of them are all things like uh, you need to get to the exit, or you need to hit the thing, so you have to go through. You're like essentially you're naked or something. You have to go through razor wire crawling and through a bunch of razor wire to get to the key or to get whatever the switch is. And so the idea originally was it's kind of on you in a lot of ways to escape, and you're risking like you could either just die, but you have to you're willing to risk your own life to escape, or how far are you willing to go?
I think.
And so it's
Go ahead.
Oh no, that was like that's I remember that being like kind of the gist of it, and that's what made it. Because I'm not a big horror fan. Like I'm more, suspense is more my thing. I like the original Alien, opposed to like an Amityville horror, but those are all weak sauce compared to stuff that came out after. Like The Ring was interesting. It wasn't like I found that more enjoyable because it's not. I was just never into Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street just because they just weren't my scene. I just that splatter gore fest. It was never something I enjoyed. So when it came to the Saw movies, it was neat because I was like, well, what kind of puzzle or what kind of twisted thing are they coming out with next? And as the movies went on, the ante was upped, and I noped out at probably a movie 3 or 4, um, and so but movie number one, I didn't realize until way later, has what's his face from Princess Bride,
Yeah, I forget that
um,
actor's name, but yeah, the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Terry Ellis.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that because yeah,
Yeah,
he's the dude in that. I think it's not really even so much the gore, honestly. It's the idea, like the idea
body horror.
of the choice. That's like you have this horrible thing that's about to happen to you unless you do something horrible to someone else. I think there's
Or to
something
you, yeah. So how far are you willing to go?
or to
Yeah,
yourself, yeah.
yeah.
Like you are gonna have to do something. Either way, you're never gonna be the same, and you're just like looking for survival. Something about that, those kind of like things, it bugs me. But I probably do need to go back and watch the first one, maybe like in the morning, so I'm not like as disturbed by it in by the evening time.
Curtains open, and family around you.
Pausing it every 10 minutes to like take a breather and go for a walk, do something else. Yeah. But anyway, so that's pretty cool. It sounds like you had a pretty good trip in Vegas.
Yeah, it was a good time, for sure. I did a little gambling, lost money. But that was money that I brought solely because I'm like, yeah, this is the money I'm bringing to gamble. Had an okay time. Uh,
Yeah.
it's
That's the thing is you bring you, whatever your amount is, for me, it was $100. And I was like, take $100 out. This is it. Once it's gone, it's gone. But luckily there was a guy, who was at our company who grew up in Vegas, and he was a numbers guy, and he was like, "Hey, let's go play blackjack." And he was really nice about it, but he was like, can like he was like, "Will you just listen to what I say? Like, will you just do what I say?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." For a couple hands, because it was a fairly low like wager table, and he was like, "Okay," and he started giving me like all the rules and like all the things you're supposed to do, and we ended up winning money because he was like he really knew what he was doing, and sometimes like his thing was like, "Look, you can play blackjack and you can beat it, you can make money off of it, but you have to play as a team against the dealer. Like, so if there's four of you playing, one of you is going to lose, but the other three are going to win. And if you keep changing that, then everybody ends up winning. And then like you tip the dealer and stuff like that. But anyway, that's just my short story about blackjack. I was actually able to win like $150 or something off of it, and I was like, sweet.
there's always someone who claims to be able to count cards in a group of friends. They're like, yeah, I can count cards. I'm like, hey, one, no, you can't. You just think you can.
If you
Some people can actually do the numbers, but then when you go to Vegas, it's like, can you really count 6 decks?
well,
Because it's just not a single deck that they use for blackjack,
people
unless if you go to
can,
a
but
offshore one.
people can, but as I understand it, it's you have to be pretty good at all that stuff to be able to count cards. And finally, if you do count cards, they know you're counting cards and they will ask you to leave. Like that's like, yeah, it's possible. You can train and do it, but they know about that and they don't allow it. Like like they just ask you to leave, and then they make you leave if you don't. So,
Yeah,
you know, like every
you leave one way or the other. So yeah,
anyway.
no,
So
Vegas was a good time though. It was funny because we were there and right before now the Super Bowl's coming that way, and so the entire
oh
time we're
wow,
there,
yeah.
they're like super strict mask mandate. Then come Thursday, they're like Thursday evening. I don't know where we were at a casino, and they're like, yeah, you don't have to have your mask on. I'm like, what? And then we looked it up and you're like, sure, after school on Thursday, like that's when the mask mandate lifted. And we're like, wait, why is it all of a sudden okay? And then I'm like, oh, there's like a UFC fight and then there's the Super Bowl. Um, like they want all the guests to come by being happy and not being crabby because they have to wear masks, and then all the good photo ops you do, your Instagrams, Twitters, all that. I'm like, if everyone's happy and smiling, by the time they actually get COVID, and they'll already be back home. and it's like people won't really be hating on Vegas, and they already got their money, so it doesn't matter.
Yes,
So
that is
and so yeah,
that is
out of nowhere, just overnight, it was like, hey, it's okay to not have masks outside. So inside casinos, it's on their rules. It's up to them. But for the most part, and they're like, I'm still going to wear my mask. I
yeah.
don't trust, especially now there's more of you like more of you assholes out there breathing on me. I'm going to be a little more as safe as I can.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was gonna ask when the UFC fight was, but I guess it doesn't really matter because by Thursday, you've got all the press has to be there for the Super Bowl. So you've got like, you have tons and tons of people on camera and people, stuff like that. So it makes sense. The money wise, I understand why they're trying to do that, but anyway, that's pretty cool. So we've kind of already gone into the what you've been watching, sort of section of this, with your saw. I mean, I just put your saw escape room and stuff like that in here. But I guess we'll switch over to me real quick. So
Yeah, sure thing.
I have been watching the Book of Boba Fett for the past several weeks. I think that the last episode just came out on Wednesday, so I did finish the this first season. I
All
don't
right,
know.
I don't know anything about this, so go, like explain it to me because
Okay.
I literally just saw it. I've been avoiding. I stopped watching the Star Wars stuff. I didn't care about the whole Mandalorian. I skipped that whole thing too. So yeah, just what is the Book of Boba Fett?
Well, so unfortunately, I can't really explain the Book of Boba Fett without talking about the Mandalorian, at least a little bit. So I'll mark or I'll speak aloud whenever the spoilers are coming up. But I guess first of all, how do you feel about spoilers on this?
You can give me the spoilers. I don't care mainly because I used to know a lot about the old Star Wars lore back the old before they retconned everything. So sure. I mean, Star Wars has lost me. I kind of it's a property I really liked, and they've just kind of driven it into the ground, and now I just don't care.
Yeah.
So go ahead,
Okay.
spoil away.
So I
So
might need to, and I'll just let you know. But you should watch The Mandalorian. Like The Mandalorian season 1 and season 2 are both very good. It's not like gonna change your life, but they're definitely worth the time at the very least. They're very good. So I do recommend watching The Mandalorian. The Book of Boba Fett, it is pretty good. I have I have a lot of complaints with it. But like after the dust settles and I've watched the whole thing, I give it like a 6 or a 7, depending on kind of what mood I'm in. So like the things I can say about this is that the main actor that is playing Boba Fett is the same guy that they got for Jango Fett, because obviously he's a clone. So it's the Jango Fett guy from Star Wars Episode 2. So I'm really proud of Disney for sticking to their guns and going, hey, that's the guy. He already he is Boba Fett from the old movies, so we need to make him Boba Fett again. So good on them for doing that. But if it were me, I would have said, no, we're going to go with a different guy for Boba Fett. Because, first of all, Boba Fett, to my mind, he should be probably about between 35 and 40. If you follow the timeline from episode 2 all the way up to where we are now. I could be wrong about that, but that's the way it seemed to me. And this guy is like in his 50s, at the very least, and he just like he's getting pretty old, and he does not look the part of a hero in a lot of ways. I think he's a fine actor. I just don't think that he fits this anymore. Also, I mean, while he's a fine actor, he's just really not that charismatic. I mean, I'm watching this guy and I'm like, man, it's okay, but it's not blowing me away. I'm not really that impressed by it. So I really hate to say that, but that's just the way that I feel. I think that they should have gone with a different actor. Um, the stuff in the Book of Boba Fett is like the Mandalorian was already a Western, and but they kind of do a pretty good job of sort of, I don't know, hiding that or kind of changing some of that stuff up. The Boba Fett, they really lean into it. They really lean into it, and it's a lot more like kind of one for one. You're watching a Western. Even if you didn't realize that before, you're gonna realize it now. Still, though, they do a good job of it. A lot of those stories are pretty classic, and they still work in this universe. Um, man, there's a lot. so like, so later on, spoilers, spoilers. So later on in Boba Fett, about midway, a little past midway through the season, they switch over, and there's like a whole episode, and it's the Mandalorian. So it's Din Djarin, who is the main guy in the Mandalorian show, and it switches over to him, and it has like a whole episode, maybe two episodes, where it's like just what he's doing, and that is the best part of the show. Sad to say, like, but like, I guess he already has the, you know, the clout going for him, and they already have a story going, so it's easier. But also, I think that actor is just better. So the parts of the of Boba Fett that are the best are the parts with the Mandalorian, and I guess they knew that going in, or they wanted to get people to make sure people watch Boba Fett, so they decided to go this route. But it's cool, but like what they're doing is, with this move, it does bring Boba Fett up as a show. Like, it makes it better, I think. But it also brings the Mandalorian down, because the quality of the Book of Boba Fett is not the same. The quality of the story, it's a little bit more bombastic. The jokes are not really as funny. I'm kind of watching it, and I'm kind of going, yeah, this is the Disney Star Wars. Okay, you know, it's just like, what are we doing here? There's
I mean, so what's that mean to? Because when you say Disney Star Wars, I'm like, well, the Lucas Star Wars is Jar Jar Binks, so
I know.
I mean, the bar is already pretty fucking low.
I know, but that was the idea, was like, we're going to take it away from Lucas, and we're going to give it to somebody that really knows how to make movies. And it's like, yeah, but like, they are Disney. Like, you know, the part in episode 8 where they free the animals and from the evil rich people on the Vegas planet.
Oh yeah, okay.
So like, when that happens, it's like, oh gosh, really? Like, the fate of the universe is at stake, and we really have to take 20 minutes to free the animals. Like, it's nice, I get it, but it just rings of like an 8-year-old would love this. And that, you know, when I saw that, I was like, okay, I need to remember that these are children's movies. Like, that's what they are. They're children's movies. But at the same time, I'm like, but those kids that watch Star Wars are grown up now. And I think that they should try to make movies that don't hit quite so hard on like the kids front, especially it's kind of a different story, but they're kind of doing some of the same stuff in the Book of Boba Fett, and it's a little bit irritating. There's some other stuff, like there's a gang of teenagers that help out Boba Fett, and it's just a half-baked idea. Like, it's not a character and another character and another character. It's like these like 5 or 6 teenagers, and 2 of them are the face of the teenagers. They're just one entity. They're one gang entity, and you're just like, okay. And sometimes they like say lines, and you're like, I don't care about you. Like you don't like, you're just some hive mind. You're just speaking for the hive mind that is like the millennials. Like, that's
All right.
Go ahead.
Here's a hot take. Boba Fett was never good. Uh,
Okay.
That's
That's going at
so
the.
that's the thing is Boba Fett came in through if I remember movies. So 4, 5, and 6. You know, or he had, the what made him cool was he was the first person to give Vader lip and not just get choked out. Um,
Had Vader's
and so
respect.
that's because if you actually just watch it, he doesn't do a whole lot of anything in that. It's actually really bland. I mean, he's cool. He's smart enough to hide in garbage, and then the space debris, and then he follows the Millennium Falcon, but he's not really like his personality's not really there. There's really nothing important. What it was is, he actually had the attitude. He could talk back to Vader, and he got away with it. And then he ends up getting swallowed. So it's just like, granted, in the extended universe, da da da, he just jetpacks out. Um, so that's. But that was the thing is he was neat because he was this tough bounty hunter. So that was his one defense. Other than that, if you actually rewatch the whole movies again, like objectively, like, yeah, he's doesn't really have a lot actually going for him. It's the fandom that really like rallied behind him and supported him for forever until they finally started making until the Clone Wars came around and like, and here's his backstory, and
I think that to your point, I think that Boba Fett is the beginning of the evidence that everything that's cool in Star Wars is an accident. Because with Boba Fett, I mean, that's my own hot take. And I'm even not sure even how much I really believe that, but I I think I could pretty mount a pretty good defense because with Boba Fett, like they didn't realize what they had, they didn't know like how cool he was, and then they make him go out like a bitch at the beginning of Return of the Jedi. It's like you could have, if you didn't have time to use him, you could have at least let him escape or something like that. But they didn't. They're just like, don't care. This character, basically like defeated our heroes, in the last one, and so but like who cares? We're just gonna throw them away. So yeah, I am kind of with you. I think Boba Fett is cool. I do think that the idea of him is cool. But my caveat or my change to agreeing with your opinion is to say that he has been mishandled, or he was mishandled back in Return of the Jedi.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, but then again, you got to realize between, episodes 5 and 6, Luke rested or stayed by the bonfire or whatever the hell you want to call it, and put all his experience points in, and then leveled up to that new Jedi. So that therefore you're like, I don't know what happened, but between that, you got a new saber, and now you fucking like powered up immensely. And you know what? We're just gonna overlook all that and just start you off OP. That was kind of, but those movies were, you couldn't go into the nuances back then. It's actually they're still great films. It's just, so the whole Clone Wars bit, I'm like, yeah, going into the whole concept of, mass producing these clones, and yes, they're based off a Mandalorian, and once I know more about Mandalorians than I probably should, all thanks to like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and their old like a lot of the old books that are no longer. Well, I had a couple of roommates that were just massive fans, and they read all the extra material, and thanks to them, even before episode 3 came out, I knew they already read the book. And so they told me more about General Grievous than that's actually ever shown in the movies. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, that's really cool.
yeah.
And I love learning that extended universe stuff. Um, so that was always really fascinating. And then all of it got just retcon. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to bother trying to learn the new stuff. Though they did make the one general or admiral, Tart. Oh crap, I can't remember his name now.
Grand
The
Moff
guy,
Tarkin,
yeah, the one who
it's CG'd
because
in Rogue One.
no, he was in the original series, the original movies. He was the older guy who survives, or for he call at one point Vader calls him friend, you know.
Uh,
Um and so it's just like they made a whole, that was one of the first separate books they made. as the Disney owned them, and like, okay, here's the first, and then that was, I was curious about that because you're like, okay, you're just doing this weird thing about this guy, just the spinoff, like who kind of cares? But then upon thinking about it, like, yeah, he calls him friend. Vader, doesn't say that about anyone else, and so having a book about him might be neat. I'm not going to go through it. I'll probably do the wiki cliff notes later, and I never did.
Mm.
So, but yeah, that's I kind of dropped out after watching the most recent trilogy. I was not. I know you're a big fan of Rogue One. I really wasn't a big fan of Rogue One. I skipped Han Solo altogether, which apparently that's a safe skip. And I've kind of just mentally checked out of the Star Wars universe. So that's why when Mandalorian came, I was actually really interested in the idea of having just how they're using like the Unreal Engine and all that.
Mm.
And I'm like, that's actually really neat. I'm more into it in the tech aspect, and because neither the Mandalorian, or I should ask you. So, does anywhere in the opening or ending credits of Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, have MC Chris playing?
I don't know who
Do
MC
you know
Chris
who
is.
MC Chris? Oh, damn you. Okay.
Sorry,
Uh,
dude.
yeah. MC Chris makes a Boba Fett rap song. This is so if you know anything about Aqua Teen Hunger Force, MC Chris was the that
Okay.
spider, and later
Okay.
on resurrected as the cow. But he's like, I want candy, bubblegum, and taffy. Laugh, it's like so. That character, he made a Boba Fett song long ago. It's a really catchy Boba Fett song.
Okay.
My back,
No,
my back
everything
got jets. I'm Boba the Fat. Yeah.
everything about this has its I mean, it has some music that sounds a little bit like Star Wars, and they do use a little bit of the original Star Wars, one of the original John Williams songs for like a couple seconds, but most of it is music that sounds like Star Wars music, and then it has quite a bit of its own track that is similar to The Mandalorian. It's a kind of a Western style, but also futuristic. But yeah, this conversation is getting a little long in the tooth, but there's only a couple more things I wanted to say. Just things that really annoyed me. Um, like there's a lot of combat in this seventh and final episode. They're just talking in open combat out on the like they're not taking cover. They're just it's like they're getting shot at and then they stop and talk to each other and then it's time to get shot at again. That was really annoying. It's like at least have them hide behind a box. Something, man. It's and then there's times where they're losing and then they just decide to win and so they win and I'm just like, okay. Um, they, going back a little bit, they continue to shit on the Jedi as the movies have done. Um, I think I understand where they're going with it because I saw a YouTube video where a guy seems to have predicted 4 years ago what they were planning to do pretty accurately, which is to basically make the Jedi bad and then forgotten and then bring them back later as the heroes from a forgotten time. And that is that is probably their plan. To me, it sounds like that's their plan to get rid of the midichlorians idea, so they don't have to ever talk about that again. Everyone can just go back to it being a mystical religion, you know. Um, but still, yeah, they are continuing to shit on the Jedi. And I won't go into further exactly how they do it. Um, there's a pretty good callback right there at the very end of the seventh episode. Um, and the Wookiee that they introduce is pretty cool. He's a little mishandled, but he's got some good bones to him. Anyway, it's if you're already into Star Wars and you feel like you don't want to miss Star Wars stuff, it's worth the watch. It's not a bad show. But it's not The Mandalorian, and it definitely has some missteps. But anyway, that's the main thing I watched. I think that you watched some other stuff. So let us know about that.
All right. I got around to watching the was it the Welcome to Raccoon City, that Resident Evil movie. Uh, It's bad.
I heard it's bad. I heard it's bad.
I mean, knowing that going into it, knowing that it's bad, it's just it's fine. Uh, I have a buddy who's like, it's an okay movie, and so we watched it, and I'm like, oh, this is not an okay movie. It's all right. So essentially, they it's like someone you had the art design or like the people's everyone in charge of the set pieces and costumes and everything. They paid attention to the Resident Evil remake, the HD remake, and they paid attention to the RE2 remake, and they're like, okay, we're doing set pieces and we're doing the aesthetics of like certain things, and like so they get a good feel for that. You get like and then what they did is they just showed still images and gave that to some people who don't know anything about Resident Evil, and then they were like, okay, we got to make a film out of this. All right, and that's kind of how it worked out, because they throw everyone in pretty much right away, and I'm not sure how big of a fan you are for when they change like races for casting. Um, a lot of people get angry when casts get whitewashed, and I can understand the anger for that. Um, Versely, I think it's weird when you have I think it's weird when you have an image of a person and they have this is the character how it's been for a long time, and now we're going to make him look completely different. So they changed both Leon, which Leon looks like a Carlos. That's a RE3 reference. Um, yeah, essentially, but yeah, he's just like he's very tan, like long, like wavy hair, and they make him Leon, who's the competent rookie in the first one, and then of course super agent badass in RE4. They make him just this bumbling idiot, just this flippin' just stupid person. He is literally the butt of all their jokes. Um, all of their jokes being the entire uh, Raccoon, police department. They have You have Jill, who is no longer the Caucasian female she was, and now she has way more sass in her attitude compared to how she normally would be, and she has it hard for Wesker. They threw that in there. Uh, it's funny. The guy who they have playing Wesker, I'm like, I know you from something. I had to IMDb him. I'm like, oh, you're the dude who played Percival in the old Merlin TV show. Uh, he is just adequate. He's not like exceptionally good, but he's not bad or anything. He's just adequate. The guy who they have playing Chris, they got Chris. Chris is like this. Okay, you look like a Chris. And that's the dude from, I think it was a TV show called Uploaded on Prime, which I really liked. You die in the afterlife, and then they upload you, depending on your wealth, to a digital afterlife where if you have a lot of money, you can live in a nice, you have bigger memory for your afterlife. But if you're poor, then you get like the shareware free sample version, and you're stuck in the basement of like the afterlife. And then you can always pay to upgrade. So if you want coffee, you have to pay for that. So it's all based on your bank account after you're dead. Um, so yeah, it's pretty dark. They only made one season, and I hope they make a second. But anyways, that guy, he plays a good Chris. And they essentially, it's like the outbreak is going on through Raccoon City. Meanwhile, they somehow hear something about a body at the Wesker Mansion. So they send a couple cops out there. They literally send, the only thing you're given aware of is you have the main crew, which is Bravo team, and that's like 5 people, maybe 6. I can't remember now. I think 6. And they sent 2 cops that you show earlier that go up missing, but that don't recall back in. Apparently, they're Alpha team. They literally respond to them as Alpha. Wait a minute, you got 2-man Alpha team? So it's really weird. It's just like they cut to the Wesker Mansion at times, and they're like, okay, you remember that scene from that video game, that cutscene? Here it is. Here's this. You remember that bit? Here that is. Like they just hit the check boxes for like someone just showed them a slideshow, and that's like, okay, well add that. The story is muddled.
Yeah, like
The acting is poor.
sorry to just interrupt on your story point. It's like
Oh, that's fine.
there's got to be a plenty of like I know there's a lot of shit fan fiction out there. There's got to be some decent fan fiction that you could go and tap somebody on the shoulder and say, "Hey, we want to use your fan fiction. Can we pay you? We're gonna change it all up. We want you to whatever." But I know Hollywood works in mysterious ways. But to me, it's like there's got to be some good fan fiction out there that you could turn into a screenplay and make a decent movie out of. It just baffles me why they can't. Why they
It's really confusing to me why they chose to merge one and two. Um, yeah, because the fact that they like, if you, the idea is you want to make a franchise, they leave it open ended at the end of like, here's the birth of this other, like the rest of the series, kind of like it's starting, and but yeah, when you kill off Raccoon City, like like the way you do, when you combine game one and two, what you do is if you want to, you make an earnest attempt, uh, kind of like when they first made the Resident Evil movies. The first movie is good for what it was, the budget, and all that stuff. So it was actually a solid attempt at making an adaptation, especially back then when a lot of the adaptations really sucked, and you had stuff like Yule Bowl making just garbage films.
oh
Um, so this was Paul W.S. Anderson, I believe,
yes
who makes all these Resident Evil movies. And the first one was good, for what it was. The second one was just hot trash. They, mainly for the rubber suit. But that's what you do is you make the first movie, and then you combine game 2 and 3 into one,
didn't
and then you can kind of go off.
didn't the second one have Jill in it?
Yeah.
Uh,
Or did it have Jill? Oh, well, see, the Jill is the current, like, that's right. They introduced her, I think, later. I'm trying to remember. It's been so long
so
since I saw
So
the that
I
whole.
think it's the second one, but it might be a later one. But I listened to a podcast where they were going through because they were horror fans and they were going through the Resident Evil movies, and kind of ironically, kind of like these are bad, but like which ones are the best and stuff like that. And also they're bad, but they're good because they're bad. And they talked about the one with Jill in it, and they were like, "This is pretty amazing." So I went and watched part of it. I didn't watch all of it, and I do in the way that a bad movie can be hilariously good. I do think that second one, for what I watched, was pretty entertaining for that point. But
See, I can't remember. I honestly can't remember if she was in it. I just remember that they made Nemesis, and they made this giant rubber suit, and it was
yeah,
just really bad.
I think it's
Um,
that one. Yeah, but like,
okay.
yeah. So I mean, if I paid to see that and I wanted to see like a good like action movie, then I would be pissed. But because I
Well, they
could
did they
kind of
did
go
the
to it
thing
with the
they
right.
did the thing that Fast and the Furious did, which I give them credit for. They tried being serious in the first couple films, and then they have a weird middling transition, and then they're like, you know what? Let's just go off the rails. Let's just go bonkers and and make it the spectacle that it is. So what those franchises mean now is nowhere, like just barely what they represented in the beginning. So Fast and the Furious, they drive cars, um, and that's it. And with Resident Evil, it's there is Umbrella Corporation and there's zombies. That's it.
Okay.
But there's nothing that resembles the Resident Evil that you would know from the games in the later set of films. And I think Paul W.S. Anderson is like executive producer or something like that on this.
Okay.
Um, so it was funny because like the one of the production crews or one of the credits to come up is like somebody's name, but it's like Raccoon Productions or something like that. I'm like, okay, this is your first. You just made this company, and now you're just basing, So you're gonna make more films. How are you gonna make more films when you just killed? I mean, unless you go straight into like Resident Evil 4. Um, but you made, it's just like the entire time everyone's just literally dogpiling on Leon about being this just inept person. Like the police chief calls a meeting, and so Leon shows up, and it's the STARS members, which is like the main 6 people, and apparently that's the entire police force except for Alpha Team, who went off to investigate a body. Like they didn't make a single one line would have fixed it. The everyone spread out thin, like around the like around the city, But no, it's like you're led to believe that there's like a 10-man police force in this entire city. So yeah, Leon comes in and he's like, what are you doing here? It's like, well, you said there's a meeting for everyone to come. Not you. No, not you. Like, you are supposed to be out there. What if someone comes into the police station? He's literally just begging on him. And like all the other guys are like, ha ha ha, you stupid fool. Ha, ha. Like it is the most frat boy like mentality or some bullshit. It's a bad movie.
Yeah, it sounds kind of exhausting. And I
You
heard it. I was really interested in it whenever they first announced it. I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is going to be kind of a return to form for Resident Evil or whatever. And then whenever the reviews came out, and they were like, this is garbage. I was
that
like,
trailer I remember being really bad, and I thought they used another slow song in that one.
I
But
think it
that
was
first
yeah.
that mayor this the thing is someone showed the other clip was going around was like a European trailer, and the European trailer actually was edited way better. So it's like this makes it actually look like a good movie. But the US trailer was just really bad.
I,
And
I think
yeah,
there was a scene that they clipped out where Jill makes like a off color sex joke or whatever about something from the internet, I think, and I think it's like about the memes about her, honestly, in the game. Um, and I was like, okay, that might be funny. And then I went and watched the clip, and I was like, I don't think that the acting is gonna be very good. It just didn't land for me. I was like, well, that's a joke, but it's not a funny one. Um, so
yep.
anyway,
It's a
it's too
B-rate
bad.
movie that I honestly wouldn't expect. I wouldn't even consider. It's not bad enough to enjoy as being a bad horror movie or just a bad movie in general. And it's not good enough to really warrant watching.
Okay.
Uh, we literally had nothing. Like we came back from hanging out in Vegas and we're like, all right, uh, I'm just tired, but I'm not ready to go to bed yet. Like, so we just have a couple drinks and we just popped it on. Like, we're watching and we're like, all right. Yeah, I'm kind of upset that I'm watching this, but I'm kind of committed now.
Yeah.
That
Um,
was kind of my gist of it. So
okay. Well,
honestly, my recommendation is not to watch it. So
I'm glad you watched it, so I don't have to. But yeah, so this podcast is going kind of long, and we've got a lot left to do. So we're gonna go ahead and move on into what you've been playing. I know that you have been playing some pretty interesting things, so go ahead and take it away.
yeah, all right. I'm going to kind of rapid fire this a little bit. So we have here one of the things I did was I went to a video game bar in Vegas, and that was called Player One. Shout outs to them. It was actually way nicer than I expected. I mean, a lot of good reviews and such, but it's a bar. You have a cover fee, or at least when we went there, and we went on Wednesday, which was apparently Wednesdays are weeb nights. Which apparently a lot of vendors for anime stuff are there selling their wares, and you get to cosplay and stuff like that. So it was a colorful crowd there. It was fun. They have anime and stuff playing up on those big screens, and they have arcade machines and like even just nice comfy chairs and TVs so you can sit down and play consoles and stuff. So some of the stuff we played were I got around. They had an old Punch Out arcade machine. I'm like, I actually love the original Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and for the
It's
NES.
supposed to be like amazing, right?
Yeah, the NES one's great. It was really neat to see because that's like you can joke it's Shadow of the Colossus, tiny man versus big giants. Now essentially it's the arcade game. I've played it before, but it was forever ago. And you're a standard, you're 1-to-1 size, correct? But in order to see your opponent because you're so big, you're just a wire frame. So it's like the old VR look. It's a scan lines or something like that. So you have a wire outside and grid lines. The response is really slow. I didn't realize how slow it was. So it was really hard for me to adapt just for the timing. So I got my ass handed to me.
Yeah.
It's like, man. And then my buddy, who's also really good at it, he's like, yeah, like kind of like step aside, let me do it. I'm like, all right, fine, man. And he got his ass handed to him. Like, fucking told you, dude. It wasn't just me. It wasn't, there's something off about the timing that,
Yeah.
once you dial it in, then you're like, okay, but we're so used to the Nintendo responsiveness, and we've played that forever.
So was this
So
on an actual Nintendo or was this emulated?
this was a legit arcade. No, this is the original arcade machine. Um,
Whoa. Okay.
so
Never mind.
they
Wow.
had a lot of stand up actual arcade machines there.
Okay.
Um, so that's we got to with that we got to play the old rival schools. I don't know if you ever got a chance to play this. This
Sorry.
is
Sorry. Just real
a
quick. So like, well, I mean, so real quick story. So when Dan Reichert was but when he was on Giant Bomb, there was a point at which he tried to go and beat Mike Tyson because he'd never done that as a kid, and he was like trying really hard, and he was trying to like do it emulated or something like that, and it was like impossible. And he was talking about it on the podcast that he had to like he was gonna like start investing money, and he was really debating about it whether or not he was actually going to invest money into getting a CRT and stuff like that because you have to have because it's such a pinpoint thing to be able to actually beat Mike Tyson in that game that you have to go back to the way it was actually played because if you play it digitally or something like that, it screws it up. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, go ahead and go on with the
Oh no,
rival schools.
that's fine. I remember him talking about. I thought he actually was able to beat it consistently because I thought there was a bar in their area where if you play, they let you play it, and if you can play and beat it, you get like a free bottle of champagne or something like that. And
I
he did it a couple times. I thought,
maybe
but
later, but I could have sworn that because he was like on there going like I've got it in my mind now. I have to go back and I have to beat Mike Tyson. Like I never beat him
okay.
before. I've got to do it. But maybe I'm remembering wrong. But anyway,
You were a fan longer before I was, so I'll trust you on that. But no, so one of the other games I played was like I said, Rival Schools. It was it's a fighting game, early 3D modeling, and it's like loosely it was Catcom, so it was like loosely connected to Street Fighter, meaning that they had a character crossover, which was Sakura, the high school girl, and her sister is a character in there as well. And it's essentially about a bunch of high schools duking it out to see who the top dogs are in the area. And I remember having it on the PlayStation and it being a fun game. But I remember also it was one of those things that like you hear going around the circuit. It might have just been because it was a low print, but also in the games you can find anywhere. And so I remember being a kid being like, the rumor was they got pulled off the shelves because of school violence. Promoting high school violence against each other, and that was,
yeah,
of course, post Columbine. Probably, I'm trying to remember. It was roughly around the right time, and so like, oh yeah, that's totally believable. So it could have been someone just made it up, and or used that maybe thought that was an excuse, and that was just taken as fact back then because you had no way to fact check that.
yeah.
Um,
Back in the
so it
day,
was just like, oh yeah, in reality, it was probably just a limited run, and it wasn't selling, because they weren't selling a whole lot anyways. But yeah, that played that, had a good time with it, and then they had the old Virtual Cop. Um, didn't know if you ever, yeah, it's like
I
that
remember
one.
Virtual Cop. Yeah,
I remember renting the Sega Saturn from a Blockbuster, and you had to give like $100 down, like safety deposit,
yeah.
and it was still really expensive. And then we rent the game and get the light guns, and I played that one to high heaven. So, because this, yeah, played through the entire thing of that, and it just brought back. That was really nostalgic for me.
Dude,
You
Virtual
know,
Cop. I remember seeing that. I think it was Virtual Cop where it was like as a kid seeing that and just being like that is the future. Like I just like your brain couldn't even handle it going from 2D stuff to that. Even though it still looks okay now, but it doesn't look as good as it did back then when it was fresh. It's crazy.
well, I mean, that kind of 3D modeling, even though it's blocky and it looks ugly, that was the cyber future that you were always promised because
Cyber.
exp- you'd go because but back then the closest thing you had was like lethal enforcers or
Yeah.
like Mad Dog McGraw or something like that, where it was the Area 51 where you have real photos of people coming up and shooting at you, and then it's like, and then you got them down, but it's all 2D pop-ups. And then you had this, which was when you shot, the enemies would react to where you shot them. So if you shot them in the shoulder, they'd jerk back properly. and yeah, that was it. Had also kind of led the way for the future of was it uh not Time Splitters but Time Crisis. Time Crisis, because when like the enemies were about to shoot, a circle comes down and then it lets you know that it's like it goes from like green to yellow to red, and that's when they're about to shoot you. So you have the extra warning, but also added it amps it up a little bit, like I gotta gun him down before he hits me. um so that was always, like I said, that game was a lot of fun. We went through, they have a easy, medium, and hard, and different route, different stages. And so yeah, we just sat there, stood there and played the entire thing. So good times. And then one game that I didn't actually know existed, and I was super happy we played, was Dynamite Cop. Uh, so Dynamite Cop is the U.S. sequel to what was the Die Hard arcade game. I forget what, I don't know what the actual Japanese was, but what they did is the original game came out, and either they had it officially licensed or they just reskinned it when they brought it to America for Die Hard. And essentially, it's just a beat 'em up game. So it's a 2-player 3D modeling beat 'em up, and you're running around. It had when it was the first one was brought to the U.S. Like I said, you're going in a big, they kind of do the Nakatomi Plaza, but the enemy is completely different. The motivation is completely different. But yeah, you're wife beater wearing John McClane and female sidekick, just whoever that is. You're like, okay, you need a player too, and we're just going to make it a woman. And it's like this is a direct sequel where you could pick between one of 3 people, and yeah, it's more of the same gameplay. It's the same bad guy. Didn't really catch the motivations behind it, but instead of being in a building, it's on a yacht, and you're running through, and as you're playing, getting from one stage to the next. The idea is sometimes they'll throw quick time events, and that was really unique for the arcade game. So it's like it'll just, as you show your model running, and it'll like hit kick. So if you press kick and you succeed, your guy would do like a jump kick and knock the other dude out, and that just means you get to skip that encounter, or like hit jump and then you'll like slide underneath the door or something like that. It was silly stuff, but quick time events were a brand new thing back then. And so I was like, "Oh, dude, that's really neat." It's like you haven't really seen that in an arcade game before. Yeah, so it's a really cheesy like bad guy and like setup, but it was a fun game. So I like I said, never knew it existed. I didn't know there's a sequel to the Die Hard game. So yeah, that was the arcade games that I pretty much played, and then I just happened to be playing a lot of Taiko. Got Taiko Drum Master on the Game Pass. Went ahead and gave that a shot, and they have a lot of decent songs on there. Turns out I don't mind playing Taiko Drum Master on a keyboard. the Obviously drums would be nice because I have it on the PlayStation 2, and those drums are a lot of fun. They While we were over in Vegas, my buddy happened to have it on his Switch, so we also played it on the Switch.
How was
that
that?
one? I hate the Switch controllers with a passion, so the game is automatically not as good in my opinion.
Okay. But I mean, like it's a drum game, so wouldn't it be better to have something like that, or
you can use the motion controls. I couldn't imagine using those reliably. Now you can play it, like this game also came out on PlayStation as well, and I own it on the PlayStation 4. And you use the controllers and you can remap the buttons. So like all face buttons and D-pad are like, you can make it the red color, and the shoulder buttons is blue, or you can have the inside buttons red and the outer buttons blue on the face pad. So you can switch it up quite a few different ways. And that's not bad. My only problem is because of the Joy-Cons, if you use the the dog face dock, that like controller handle that you comes with, in general, because on a Xbox or a PlayStation controller, the D-pad is in parallel with and in line with the D-pad and the number pad, or the key. So those are the same. While Switch has them kind of off center, and because they're off center, it's not as comfortable to, like, if you want to be like, all right, this row, like the inner buttons are red, the outer buttons are blue. And then but because you're off center, it messes with your brain a little bit more. Uh, so I was not having as good of time.
Is
My buddy has a third party controller, one of those just like Pikachu controller or something like that. But he had and that feels more like a normal controller. So he that was much more comfortable to use. Um, I but the game was all the Switch game. No, I noticed the differences. There's some song differences between the two. The Switch will let you unlock songs, so I'm like, oh, this song roster is not really that big. And then as you're beating new songs, they're unlocking more stuff. We're like, okay, so there's a lot of like that's it. It's kind of nice that at least it's rewarding you for playing, but also I'm kind of used to the idea of just having them all available to you right away. The Switch does have song packs of DLC for you to buy, while like the PlayStation One and all other territories, I'm pretty sure they have song packs. But in the U.S., you have to buy each song individually, which can be. I think it's a little more expensive, also. But you're not buying. Usually, you're like, oh, there's two songs I want. The third song I don't want. So you're not getting any stuff you don't want. So it's a
mm,
trade off. Um, but no, it's the Game Pass game is because I have a nice keyboard. I'm like, oh, this is pretty responsive. This is pretty awesome.
that's pretty cool.
And the Switch one, my buddy, after we played, like playing by yourself is okay, but playing with a friend is where it's at. And we played way longer than we normally would have. We were also drinking a bit, so it
So
made it
that
more
helps.
enjoyable as well.
Well, I was gonna ask,
Um,
is there a way to hook up like Rock Band drums or something to it?
so on the PC, there might be a workaround for that with USB and interface. But
Like,
as far as the Switch goes, they actually sell Switch drums.
yeah, that's what I
So
was kind of getting at. Is like, is there an extra controller that they sell just for this game?
the officially licensed ones go for about $100, um, and you
Oh,
usually have to import those from Japan. They do make some third-party ones, and I believe those range roughly around $50.
okay.
So it's not terrible when you think about, a new controller is usually about $50. But it is terrible when you think this is a proprietary thing. It's only going to be used for this specific game. Then it's like, oh, that's a little harder of a pill to swallow.
Yeah, if you had like a
What I've
family
actually looked into,
that if you had like a family where everyone was like with like a bunch of people who all love to play it, and somebody was playing it, you know, like not like, you know, the whole day at some point, then you would be like, oh, this might be worth it. But yeah,
I got my
otherwise,
mother-in-law into the PlayStation 1,
okay.
and I think it was PS2. So because I had both the old drums for the PS2, and so I actually got her into it. And when we went overseas, she would still have it, and she actually bought like those placemats you have in your kitchen for your silverware and stuff, or your glassware, I mean.
Yeah.
So in your dishes, so they don't slide. She put that down on the coffee table so she can put the drum. So when she's hitting on the plastic drum, it doesn't slide across the coffee table.
She's
Uh,
a gamer.
it was funny. And so what I did is what I want to do is I want to get a PS2 converter to USB and see if I can use that on the PC, because I think if I can do that, that would be worth it, even if it's like $30 or something. But no, Taiko was a lot of fun. It was always an expensive game to play at the arcades in Japan. Then you'd see the hardcore kids who would have their like drumsticks. They'd have like modified actual drumming drumsticks, so like with extra tape on the end so they don't cause damage on the surface. But yeah, those kids, they would bring them from home and just go to town. And I'm like, oh, dude, that is pretty hardcore.
Wow,
Uh,
that's pretty
so
awesome.
yeah, that's it for what I've been playing. How about yourself, man?
Cool, man. So I've been playing the PC port of God of War 2018, uh, Dad of War, as it is often referred to.
Yeah, that's what I called it.
Um, and this game's, I mean, newsflash, this game's really good. Um, I really enjoyed it. I knew I would, and back in 2018, it won a bunch of awards, um, game awards for best story and best overall and all that stuff. I'm not even quite 9 hours in. I've done a couple of extra stuff, so I would be further along probably in the story if I had just gunned it. But that's a testament to kind of how good some of the puzzles are. That they do a good job of leading you and like putting the puzzles that you don't have to do right there as you're going along. So you're like, oh, I can just I can just do this one real quick, you know. And so it's good for that stuff. The story is good so far. I know it gets there's more to it. I'll just say, but I haven't gotten to those places yet. So a little bit about me and God of War in general as a series. I didn't play them much growing up. Um, they were rated M, and I wasn't allowed to play M-rated games. When I could,
Oh, bad.
I know, dude. It's like just stupid. And then the games that would be rated M, like Halo, was rated M because of like alien blood and like a little bit of like human blood. I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. But when I did finally get to play them at friends' houses and stuff for a little bit, those old God of War games, I didn't really like them. They were like really like, the term button mashy doesn't really fit, but it's like, in the truest sense of the word, like you had to hit the same button like 50,000 times to make something happen. You're like, oh, like that. And I get it, but I didn't like that. I didn't find that entertaining as much as I played it. Maybe if I had time to play it more, I would have enjoyed it. I also didn't like Kratos back then, as he just wasn't really a likable character to me. The games didn't catch me straight away. So I didn't really appreciate them back then. But I always heard people say, "Oh, they're so good. Oh, it's so good." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, this God of War, I've been wanting to play it for a long time, but I didn't have a PlayStation. So I was really glad to pick this up. Just a little bit on the PC port aspect of it. It's seemed good to me so far. I haven't had any problems to speak of, except for one time I opened it up and it was stuttering really bad. And then I realized I had DaVinci Resolve open, and I was like, I bet that is probably taking up too many resources. So I closed that and immediately the stuttering went away. So I don't even count that as a point against it, just something that happened. It looks good. It plays well. They've been doing a couple patches. They've done at least probably 3 since I got it. Right when it came out, and those have been, I guess, for like it's good that they're supporting it. I guess is what I want to say with that. Yeah, man, like I think it does a really good job story wise, as I've seen so far, of humanizing this mindless brute without giving up the farm of, like, so to speak, of like Kratos being a hard man to know, and without giving up his toughness, without giving up kind of really his one dimensionality. Like they really do a good job of being like, this is a one dimensional dude, and we're gonna show, or at least he tries to be that way. That's what he thinks he is, and we're gonna show you that he's not. And so I'm excited to play the rest of it. I'm probably gonna have to gun it through the story and just quit playing around with any of the extra stuff, because there's a lot of games coming out that I really want to play. So I don't know how much further I'm gonna get in this. I do want to get through the story. I do. I will go ahead and commit to getting through the story, because it should only be about 20 hours is what I read on how long to beat. So hopefully I'm about, a little over a quarter of the way through, at the very least, and can see it, because I know I've heard that it's really good.
Yeah, I found the game totally worth going through to the end, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did get the platinum. The only real challenge I had was um, there's an optional boss fight essentially, which I won't say anything so it won't spoil. But it was that one was kicking my teeth in. That was brutal. It took a long while. I had to respec because they do have leveling up elements, or to a certain extent. So I had to change some stuff up, and a couple times, and eventually I got like, but yeah, it's like, and then you start memorizing the patterns to a certain bit. But that was just an optional. It's literally an optional boss fight. Most people don't get to it until after they beat the game, anyways. I did it beforehand just because I was stubborn that way, and that game though is really good. It's I played it on the PS4, and it was yeah. You should at least very minimum see the story through, especially since the new one's coming out. But they yeah about his one dimensionality. They do the whole I'm trying to be a tough dad, and I'm gonna slowly try to put my hand on your shoulder. Oh, I pull away. Nope, it's I can't show my softness. I'm too hard for that. And
Yeah, but
I mean,
they do it like twice really early on, and they haven't done it in a while. And I mean, it is a little bit like, I guess, in your face, but it's also, I don't know, it worked for me. I think.
don't just there's a little bit in the second act where the child acts like a brat, and so you're like, just make it past that. Like, it's a little hump. You're like, okay, yeah, I get it, kid.
I think I'm in that part right now because he's getting a little snarky. We're down below in this really dark area that we've gone through before, but it's dark now and there's different puzzles and stuff. So, and he's being like kind of a little brat, but it's also kind of merited, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, like I said, the writing in it's just solid. And they do one of the best things is like when they do side tangents, like you're rowing the boat and let's kill some time by telling a story, and then you make it to your spot or something happens. Well, next time you go there, they'll be like, okay, where did we leave off? All right, and then they actually continue. I'm like, oh, that's great, because I always hate that. And then like an open world game or something like that where they're in the middle of talking and then all of a sudden something comes up and then they just stop. I'm like, and then you'll never like get to hear that finish that little quip or story ever again. So they do a good job of continuing where they left off.
Yeah, they really do. It's it's probably the best way that you can handle that. It is a little awkward sometimes, but I don't know of a better way to handle it because sometimes they'll be in the middle of a story and I'll be pressing B to pull up to the shore, and it'll really pull like, shut the fuck up, and then go on. But they do it the best way you possibly could, I think. The battle system was messing me up. I mean, I'm not playing it on. There's like a bunch of different settings. There's like, give me a story. There's like regular. There's like hard, and then there's like this is God of War. Well, I'm playing on like regular, and it's the battle system was messing me up early on, but I kind of got it figured out now. I now that I've kind of spec'd more to be properly and kind of memorized what I need to be hitting. I will say that when there's like a yellow circle that comes up whenever someone's about to strike you, and you can block their hit or something like that. And I get that like a third of the time, but there's a good portion of the time where I'm like, I feel like I hit that and it's not giving it to me. So I don't know. I guess I'm not particularly good at games, so I guess it's my fault. I just need to get better at it. But how did you feel about that? Did you feel like the combat was ever, I don't know, less than perfect?
I found the combat was better than it had been in the God of War series. I felt. I honestly, I don't. I beat 1 and 2. I don't think I ever actually beat 3. And I played whatever one for the PSP, I think, or some crap like that. So I've played most of them. Button mashy is close to how you would describe it. Because it's just even opening the chest, because it's all about the rage, and so you'd have to smash X just to flip open a chest in the originals. So this was handled far better than any of the others. I honestly don't remember having a particularly difficult time with the combat. I've also played a few more games that are in the same vein at the time more recently, so that's like, all right, it wasn't really out of the wheelhouse. I'm like, okay, this is the combat was just solid. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel like anything was working against me, I should say. But also, I don't remember anything being particularly I remember the story by the end of the day. I honestly don't remember much about the combat. Okay. It was forgettable.
Yeah.
Except for that last boss fight. That was like, once again, kicking my teeth in.
I think I must have just needed to kind of respec because by the time I got to the lake, I was, I was able to beat some of the normal enemies, but they did do quite a bit of damage. Um, anyway, and then I was clicking on, or I was touching this like black, you know, orb cloud, and it would open up and bring out like these three enemies that were really hard. And I didn't realize for the longest time that I didn't need to engage with those. Like they were some kind of bonus thing. And so,
Yeah, so there's literally going to be ones that you pull out, and if you do it early on, insta death, just like one hit and you're done.
okay, well,
So
good then.
just wait, just you don't be afraid to run away from those, yeah,
Yeah.
or just reload and just be like, I'll come back to you later, because that's what happened to me. Is I did the same thing because I'm stubborn and I like to try to go, like even if it was like, one of them was a 2-man team and they were just brutal, and I'm like, I'm gonna beat my face into this wall because I'm gonna beat you while being under leveled, and I don't think I ever did. And then of course then when I came back later, I'm like, okay, now I have to do all these because I have to prove that I'm better than this game.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, for that section, I would have appreciated it if, the kid said like, cause he'll help you sometimes with like, with information, kind of suggesting stuff to you. I kind of wish he had said like, um, hey, we could do this later, or we should do this later. Just so you are like, oh, the game doesn't, this is an extra challenge. The game wants me to backtrack too.
He
But
wouldn't listen to the boy.
well, yeah, I guess I suppose that story wise, there is one part where I did backtrack, and I thought it was where I was supposed to be going, and it ended up being useful because I was able to open up some chests and stuff that I hadn't been able to get to before. But as we go back, the kid says like, there's no way through this way," and then or like, we're not supposed to be going this way or something. And then Kratos goes, I know that. It's like, okay, that's very well handled. Very well handled. Excellent
Yeah,
game. Definitely am enjoying it so far. And I will hopefully be able to play the rest of it at some point and check back in.
that voice actor is the guy from he's in Stargate SG-1. He's the alien on their team, and I can't remember his name now, both of the character or the actual actor. Yeah, he has the emblem in the forehead.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's funny though because I'll call to my son and I'll yell at I'll call his name or something that he just will not pay attention to me. Then I yell, "Boy!" and he turns around and looks at me. I'm like, it works.
That's so funny. That's too good. Okay. That's all I got to say about God of War. So we have one more thing before we get to news. So last time Joe threw down the gauntlet, issued a challenge of sorts for me to play a game. You were having me play Sleeping Dogs. Quick report on that. I haven't got to play much of it, but I have started it. I am about 2 hours in, and I will save all of my opinions for next week when I have played a lot more of it. But now it is time for me to return the favor, and do to you what you have done to me. So I have a couple different categories for you to choose from.
Okay.
And I don't know if I know you haven't played some of these. I'm pretty sure, but I'm also think you probably have played some of these. So we'll just go through and do our best. I have taken account how much, or rather how little time you have in your everyday life, like
Appreciate it.
every other adult, especially one with a child and a wife has. But so these should all be pretty short and sweet, easy enough to beat in a reasonable amount of time. So your first three categories to choose from are let's say a short and sweet puzzle game, or a strategy game, or an indie action role playing game?
Let's go with the action role play. The indie action role play. Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Okay. Have you ever played Bastion?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I've crushed Bastion.
Okay.
I've played that. I own the soundtrack. Played it on multiple systems. So yeah, that's a damn good game.
Yeah. So I mean, that was actually the longest one of the ones I've picked. So we're going to remove that indie action role playing game.
Right.
And
So it's a strategy or a puzzle, something puzzle game. And unless you have something to slot into the third slot.
I do. So, short and sweet puzzle with story. I'll say with story. Strategy, and then the new one I'm going to put in is also a puzzle game to me, but not in the way that you would think.
I'm intrigued by that one, but I'm gonna say let's go with number 1.
Okay, short and sweet story puzzle game. Have you ever played Inside?
That was
is it Play Dead or same guys as
Limbo? That's their second game, right? It's like after Limbo.
Yes.
Okay. No, I actually haven't gotten around to playing that one.
All right. So I played this game last summer. I did it all in one session. I think it's between 3 and 4 hours. You don't have to do it in one session, but you can. I do think that you should play it. This is the game that I challenge you to play. Short and sweet, and it's very good. It's very good.
Okay. So I'm going to ask for extra credit on this, and I'm going to say, what was your number 3? Because I think I can do Inside. It's just one of those things that I think I can do Inside beforehand. So I just want some extra credit here, because next week we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so what's number 3?
Okay. I don't know how I feel about this, because I feel like
that's fine.
I feel like if I say what it is, then the challenge is there. So I don't know. I'm
afraid of the strategy one, because but you said you took my time into consideration. But when you say strategy, my brain automatically goes to something like a 4X game, and I'm like, no, I don't have time for Civ or anything like that.
It's not Civ. It's not like StarCraft. It is strategy, but it's not like live strategy or whatever. I'm gonna put an asterisk here.
Okay.
For the future, in case I want to cry foul at some point. But the puzzle game that I'm talking about, that you wouldn't really think of as a puzzle game, is, have you ever played the first, or Hitman 2016?
Okay, yes, I have.
Okay. So did you do the
challenges?
Did you go deep on a level?
No, I did bare bones. I didn't go I didn't flush out every,
So my caveat to this one, because it's kind of long if you play it straight through, and I don't think Hitman is that good until you get into they're called escalation missions and the other special missions. And I was going to challenge you to go through the game and pick one level that you really liked, and then go through as many escalation missions as you could, and try to really flesh one out. That was going to be my other one. So if you have already played it, then yeah, you could probably do this. You probably could do this too.
Yeah, it's, I played it shortly after you got into it, and you're the one who got me into this, actually.
Okay.
Because you were streaming it for a little bit, and yeah, that what made me interested in the that 26, or was it 2016? Jeez, was it that long ago?
It was, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so for sure, all right. Because all right, I'll do what I can, and this will be interesting. All right.
Yeah, just pick a level and try to figure out every aspect of it, because
I feel like everyone's just that would just be Sapienza, right? Everyone picks Sapienza. That's everyone's favorite.
Sapienza is good. Sapienza, that's the one. Yeah, okay. Sapienza is good, but pick it, because that's where the real Hitman is. It's like, holy shit, the stuff you can actually do, and where the way stuff connects, it just blows your mind.
All right, so
Escalations
I
and
pulled I
different
asked for
ways to
extra
kill.
credit. You gave it.
Yeah.
So
So there you go. But I think that's pretty doable, especially since you've already played it. So you can just go in and start deep diving on that. So that's it for games. Before we get to news, do you want to take a break?
yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and take a little break, and then we can come back, knock out the news.
Okay, sounds good. See you in a minute. Okay, and we're back. So the challenge has been issued, and now we're going to jump into the news. Not a whole lot that really caught my eye. I hope I didn't miss anything big. I don't think I did. The only thing that really caught my eye is the Nintendo Direct happened a few days ago as of this recording. I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in there. Um, and so there's a few things in it that I wanted to go over. All in all, this Nintendo Direct is definitely not as impactful as the last one. But there's some stuff in here. I guess the biggest thing to me is Triangle Strategy is coming out. This is from the same guys that made or adjacent. I think it's the same developer crew that made Octopath Traveler. So the visual layout of it is pretty cool. I've heard that the battle system and the kind of the gimmick of the game is really good. Hot take: Triangle Strategy is a fucking terrible name for a game.
Well, just to let you know, when they first came out with the demo, the name was Project Triangle Strategy, and it was like name not yet determined. So, I mean, they decided to drop the project.
So that was an improvement, I must say. But it's like, I mean, because they said the same thing about Octopath Traveler. It's like, it's just a description of what the game is rather than being, I don't know. I just like, there's
They
no,
love names like that. You got Bravely Default. I mean,
yeah, I just like, that sucks. I mean, give me something to hold on to. Like, that's a story was, well, whatever. But I just downloaded the demo, so I will be playing that. I'm highly considering getting it in March. We'll see. But it is, I think it's one of the bigger games that's coming out in March, at least to me. But we'll see about that. So, anyway, I'll probably report back in on that at some point. Next up, Chrono Cross, which I care about. They are getting a remaster of the original game, including a Radical Dreamers, which is the kind of it's not really a prequel, but it's like it's kind of a proof of concept for Chrono Cross. It's a funny story. So the battle music for a Chrono Cross is often maligned. It's like the worst track on an otherwise, it's like a terrible track on an otherwise brilliant, all-time legendary soundtrack. And it's unfortunate because the battle music is what you hear the most of any song. But I think I'm going to get a little bit weird here, but the most funny and probably apt description that I've ever heard is someone said on Reddit that it sounds like you're being raped by clowns in hell. And that's pretty spot on. I love Chrono Cross, and I don't even really hate the music that song that much, but it's pretty accurate. So Radical Dreamers. I watched a streamer play some of this, a speedrunner play some of this one time, and that song, the battle song, was in Radical Dreamers, and I was like, okay, because it made a lot more sense on from like a Nintendo or like a Super Nintendo context. Anyway, so it was like, okay, now it kind of makes sense why they decided to keep it, because I wanted to pay homage to Radical Dreamers, but it's kind of a mess up. Anyway, I probably won't play this, but it's cool that they are doing a remaster. I kind of wish it was a full remake, but that remains to be my wish. Another remake that they're coming out with is Front Mission. Um, they are they're doing several of the Front Missions. The first one is coming this summer, and they're going to be doing 2 and 3. I think I played Front Mission 4 on the PlayStation 2. I think it was Front Mission 4. That's the only one that I really got into. And I really liked that game. I did fizzle on it. I didn't beat it. But those games are pretty cool. And the footage that they have of it did make it look pretty nice. I'm not going to lie. I was like, oh, this definitely looks updated. And so I might check that out. It depends on time, and we'll just see how much there is of it. So going on, Xenoblade Chronicles. This is a new game, and it's coming out September 2022. So this year later. I doubt that I'll play this, but I might if I need something for my Switch. We'll see, but I've heard that they're good, so we'll see about that. Do you have any interest in Xenoblade Chronicles?
It came out, I think, originally on the Wii U or something like that, or was it 3DS? Either way, I didn't own the system, so I kind of just glazed over it. And then they came out like with a remaster or something, or an HD version or something for, I think, a while back, and I it's I don't know. It's one of those things that I wish I had the time to. I just JRPGs and that scope and that grand scheme. It's just that is asking a lot of commitment, and I just cut my losses. I mean, the high school me who had a lot more free time would have ate this up hands down. I think it. I know a lot of people who play it really like it. I'm honestly just not going to touch it.
Yeah, I guess we'll just see, how it goes. Um, Another thing is a game called Live Alive, or Live Alive as it's said. It's a Japanese game that was previously unreleased in the United States. It's supposed to be good. They're bringing it to Switch in the United States. I don't remember really what this game is about or even what it looks like, but I do remember that I did like what I saw. I was like, okay, this looks kind of cool, and maybe I might engage with it. I don't know. And then there is I kind of skimmed through this Nintendo Direct because there wasn't really that much that was catching my eye. But there is a Taiko game coming, either that or it's DLC. So I wanted to go to you as our resident Taiko expert to ask if which it is, if you know.
It's the latest, according to what I see here. It's so this is, I think the previous one was Drum and Fun for the one the one I just played on the Switch. I think it's like Taiko no Tatsujin, Drum and Fun, I think it was. And this one's going to be it's Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythm Festival. So it's supposed to be the latest in the series. And
Okay.
that one doesn't have a release date. They talk about some of the songs they have on there. So they have some the theme from Zelda and a few other things. They end up talking about like supposed to have over 500 access to 500 songs, but that's with the there's supposed to be like an in-game subscription allegedly. I actually didn't get a chance to read or to see the direct, so it was just kind of I only had a chance to really skim over a little bit of the articles, and but this is supposed to be a whole new thing, so that's there's that.
Good.
And
Cool.
there's a few things that I wanted to put down on here that I thought was worth noting. So they seem to have updated some information about the Advance Wars 1 and 2 remake called Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. And so that's April 8th is the date they have for that right now. They also announced Portal Companion Collection, and that just has currently just a 2022 release date. So no real other information outside of that, other than it's the idea of doing multiplayer with Portal is going to be interesting, especially since I think they said I thought I read that it's supposed to be split screen. You can do a number of things, but split screen is supposed to be one of the things you can do. And I guess I don't know. I guess maybe I'm underselling the Switch. I just think it wouldn't be powerful enough to do it unless if they minimize some of the effects and whatnot. But I love me some Portal, and the two-player stuff in Portal 2 was a lot of fun. Uh, you can murder each other just for fun, and because you're robots, you just get rebuilt. Here's your new avatar. So yeah, did not see that coming at all. So the fact that they're doing a Portal game for it is really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think I mean, you lower it down to 720p, and then you probably take out some artifacts, do a little bit of whoop-de-doo developer magic, and yeah, maybe it can run pretty well. Hopefully, those are pretty old games, came out before the Switch, so maybe they can
Yeah.
make it work.
Well, I think they're doing something special. They'll probably tweak it something special for the Switch, knowing Nintendo. Um, but then there's also Earthbound slash Earthbound Beginnings, and let's see. I don't know anything else about this. This is just a title that I just found like 30 seconds ago, and I
Yeah,
love me Earthbound as well. Earthbound was a great game for the original Super Nintendo, and uh, that was Earthbound was Mother 3 in the series. For as confusing as that crap is, um, I remember the game came out. And it was the weirdest packaging because it came out. You had the cartridge, but also had a T-shirt. Every game came with a T-shirt back then, and I think the strategy guide was also in it. Um, or people often, either that or a lot of people ended up buying the strategy guide. But with that, the strategy guide, the most noted thing about that is in the back you had your enemy listing, and they were scratch and sniff enemies.
oh,
So you get you see their little pixel icon of what the enemy was. You scratch it, and you can actually smell what they smelt like. Uh,
wow, okay,
yeah, that was a different time for sure. But that game was a neat RPG because it was set in like modern suburbia America, and so your weapon, like you hear a crash and like you're like I'm gonna check it out, and it turns out to be like a crater, and like and you find out it's like UFO or something, and you end up fighting these like monsters and stuff like that kind of pop up here and there, and your weapon a baseball bat as it should be,
yeah, makes sense.
Uh, oh, that game was so good. So if anyone ever gets it, like I don't know if this is just a remake but because it says Earthbound Beginnings, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a redone version of like Mother One or what. I have no idea. So
It's two different games. I don't know what Beginnings is, but they did show it like Earthbound and then Earthbound Beginnings as like a separate thing that are coming. They are remasters. I did see a little bit of this. It just looks like Earthbound, but
all right, it could be Mother One then because it might be the original like
yeah,
Famicom or Nintendo version.
I think it is.
Um, and which means that you would have like 1 and 3 probably, which I'm super excited about. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so
yeah,
I mean I was kind of excited about this a little bit. I'd like to play Earthbound. I don't know if I will get the actual time to, but at least it's there, so you don't have to emulate it or whatever. So that's kind of nice. But yeah,
a question for you: do you know anything about the new Fire Emblem Three Hopes that they mentioned? Because I played a little bit of Three Houses. I couldn't keep up with it all the way. I made it like to the latter half, I guess. Um, and it's just coincidentally enough, the my buddy who I was traveling with to Vegas, he actually restarted Fire Emblem from scratch, the Three Houses,
oh wow,
and so that was his gameplay, the main thing he was doing when we were like downtime back at the hotel. So
whoa.
I just have is this do you know anything about it? Is this a direct sequel? Is it more DLC? Because they
I
came out with a few of them.
I
Did
think
you?
it's just DLC.
Okay.
I think it's just DLC. I clicked kind of through it. I mean, I would love to play that game, but it's really long and there's so much else that's coming out. But maybe I'll make time for it eventually. But especially if it's on the Switch, maybe I can just leave it. Just kind of play it around the house and before bed a little bit at a time for a year and maybe finish it finally. But
It's really fun.
it's good.
It's really fun, and I used my a buddy of mine let me play his copy. That's how I got as far as I did. I have one of those blank amiibo like units where you can just plug into USB and just download the amiibo like image onto it,
Yeah.
and so I use that to get all the bonuses or whatever you needed for it.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'd love to play it. I don't know about this DLC though. I think it's DLC. It didn't have the pomp and circumstance of a new game. I can tell you that. And it didn't look like anything more than what we already kind of have. But if you're into that, if you're into Fire Emblem, then you're probably going to be into this new stuff coming out.
All right, cool.
So that is it for the news. Signal boost. I've got something. I have been using this app called OneNote for a long time. It's from Microsoft. So I do a lot of dungeon mastering. I run a game, a weekly game, and then I'm also a player in another game. And then I also do a lot of kind of writing, note taking for, what I think about different games and for the podcast, and then just other stuff like that, and recording workouts and stuff. And OneNote has been really, really great for me for the past 2 years or so. It's from Microsoft. It's free. It's simple. They don't overdo it. They don't, it's awesome. It does have some glitches though, and it is a little bit bare bones, which is what I've needed. But recently I've come across this app, and I guess it's been around for a while. I just had no reason to change. It's called Notion, and it takes a lot of the simplicity of OneNote, and keeps it, but it improves a lot of the organization stuff. So I recently switched over to Notion because I heard it was kind of good, so I tried it out, and it kind of has a little bit of a high learning curve. As simple as it is, there's a lot of options, and they kind of overwhelm you with it, honestly, at first. But I guess they're trying to give you a reason to switch. But I recently switched to that, and if you're somebody who's into note taking, or you need to take some kind of notes, or writing in general, Notion is pretty cool. I could go into all the reasons that it's cool, but it's definitely worth checking out, and it's free for sure. It has a free version. I haven't even seen anything about what it costs to upgrade to some kind of paid version. I don't even know what that would be. So that's how little they have pushed that, if that tells you anything, which I count that as being really good. But anyway, so that is my signal boost. Anyway, Joe, if you got nothing, then that is going to do it for the podcast.
Yeah, that's it for me. Just I'm glad to be back. Fun having the vacation, but it's also traveling wears you out. So despite having very little sleep, I'm very happy to be doing this.
Yeah, you're a trooper, and I'm really glad that you're able to tough it out with as little sleep as you've gotten. I hope that you can get some in the very near future.
Yep.
Well, with that, the pod has been cast, and we will see you guys next time.
Yeah, take it easy, guys.
All right, bye.